Whatever happened to the rugged Canadian? That is the topic of tonight's byline. We used to laugh at Toronto because once upon a time, they called the army in to shovel the snow off their streets, and I still laugh at that. But now residents of Canada's largest and apparently most helpless city are having groceries delivered to them by the Premier, and when that isn't happening, they're getting gift cards for free groceries handed out by politicians. What on earth have we become? I remember stories from the history books of rugged Canadians. We lived through rough weather, extreme weather. We crossed the continent, cleared the land. And now, after a snowstorm, we need the Premier to deliver groceries? Regular viewers on this show know that I advocate being prepared. I don't just advocate this on TV, I live it. I'm somewhere between having a full-blown bunker and having the 72 hours of supplies that everyone should have on hand. Well, that need to prepare extends to every single Canadian. Whether you live in a city, in the country, or somewhere in between, it extends to you. Whether you're a large family or a single person, you need to prepare. You need to have a minimum of food and water on hand in case of an emergency, like the power going out after a snowstorm. Now, I realized there were a lot of power outages. My brother in Hamilton, Ontario, my in-laws in Sherbrooke, Quebec, they were all without power. Meanwhile, I sat in Ottawa, ready, but we kept the lights on. In parts of Newfoundland, well, there were areas of the province without power for a week. They didn't have the Premier going out delivering food hampers and spending nearly $1 million to hand out food gift cards. In Toronto, Premier Mom is running around town to make sure you have enough beans and frozen pizza. Now, there are claims she's favoring certain areas over others. And we're acting like spoiled children, complaining that, Mom, you gave Sally a cupcake with 6 sprinkles and I only got 4. No fair. Give me a break. So now, after already handing out $842,600 in grocery cards, almost entirely in Toronto, Premier Mom announced that another $450,000 will go to other communities that also had snow fall in the winter. A lot of this money for the gift cards, I will admit, has come from companies, including grocery store chains. But the province is also providing matching funds. At first, it was just $100,000, then $200,000, and it's growing as the program goes. And now we have opposition MPs outside of Toronto wanting to know how their residents can get these gift cards. That will only make the program grow further. Look, I understand NDP and PC members of the legislature asking why their residents got nothing while the province was handing out food hampers and gift cards to Toronto residents. But that misses the point. We shouldn't be doing this at all, not at the government level, not at the provincial level. Are we so helpless now that we can't survive a winter storm inside our homes without the nanny state riding to the rescue? This isn't the High River flood where people actually had to leave. This isn't the Slave Lake fire where so much of the town was burned down. This was a major city, and when some snow fell, some freezing rain came in the winter, and the power went out, well, everyone lost their minds. Not everywhere, but plenty of locations were without power for days. Shouldn't you have been ready? As individual citizens, as communities, as cities or towns, we should be able to look after ourselves or each other without Premier Mom riding to the rescue, cash in hand. We are Canadians. We are a hardy people. We can do better than this. And that's the byline.
We are critical of the program. We are critical on the fact that it is not equitable throughout the province of Ontario. And we are critical with the fact that she abused taxpayer dollars, she abused corporate generosity, all in the name of a quick photo op.
A photo op of the Premier delivering groceries. Yes, that's what we've come to, at least in parts of Canada. I want to check in with my resident prepper, though, Chris Sims, she's been battening down the hatches in Nova Scotia. Chris, you guys are getting hit with another storm. You're at the legislature. Is it empty because Steve McNeil's out handing out groceries?
Yeah, I think they're all busy handing those out. Actually, here in Nova Scotia, I do find people in general a little bit better prepared for whatever Mother Nature may bring. It's often because it's more of a rural atmosphere here outside of the downtown Halifax core. I'm sure down here in the Halifax core, students might have a jar of mustard and some leftover wonton soup from last night. But other than that, I imagine they're not very well prepared, Brian.
You and I, some people will say, well, you guys are crazy preppers. Look, I have a family. I need to be able to feed my family. So we've got wood at the house for putting in the fireplace. We've got charcoal in case we can't cook except on the barbecue. We have extra food. We have canned food just to feed us in general, but there's always a bit extra there. I almost fired 2 of my staff today because I found out they have no food in their house. The power goes out, they die.
Exactly. That's the thing. And this isn't a crazy thing. We don't have 6 years of food. We have probably enough for maybe a couple of months. That was standard a couple of generations ago, Brian. It's the rest of the people that are crazy, that have forgotten that in just-in-time delivery world, it might happen that you can't get to the grocery store. You might be snowed in. There might be an ice storm. The power might go out. And you don't want to starve to death in the dark. So if you don't want to do that, and you don't want to wait for Premier Wynne to bring you a gift card, you should probably stock some peanut butter and ravioli in your cupboard.
Turns out I have more food in my desk here at the office than some of my producers have at home. I've got a jar of peanut butter because you never know when you're going to be hungry. It's a healthy snack. And for days when I can't get out, I actually have healthy food, well, semi-healthy food. This is better. Flakes of chicken, flakes of turkey. I got some pink salmon, spicy Thai chili tuna, cans of sardines. These are all fairly healthy options that I can make something here at the office if I don't bring a lunch, if I don't have time to go out. That's just a emergency preparedness for my desk, and apparently I have more. It doesn't have to be a ton of stuff, but what should we be looking at? Let's put up the government list that they put out. We got to have water, and you got to have enough food for 72 hours, right?
Yes, you do. And I would say that's the bare minimum. Matt Gurney actually wrote about this in the Post a few weeks ago, and I agree with him. 72 hours is the bare minimum. At the end of 72 hours, every single Canadian in Canada cannot expect a member of the armed forces knocking on their door with a bowl of hot stew and some drinking water. So at the very minimum, have 3 days worth of medical supplies if you have something that needs to be refrigerated, food and water. And again, you don't want to be dependent on the state if this happens, because it's you that is either going to get sick or be trapped and starved to death.
And look at the fight that's going on in Toronto now. Premier Mom was nicer to this neighborhood than that neighborhood. People in Toronto got food, but people in Cambridge didn't. I mean, this is the kind of insane thing that you come to when you rely on the state to show up and provide you with emergency supplies. I know some of the people didn't need it. Some of the people didn't want it, and they were upset that she was politicking, but others, you know, I remember reading about Hurricane Sandy, an affluent area of Connecticut, guy with a huge house saying, if they don't open up the road soon, I'm going to run out of food. That's what he told the New York Times reporter. It had been just over 24 hours that the town was shut down.
Our grandparents should be ashamed of our generation. They really should. The fact that we live in affluent areas, in northern climates that get hurricanes, that get ice storms, that get snow, they get blizzards, the power sometimes goes out, and that we would starve to death in our homes if we are trapped there for one whole day. It's shameful that we're not better prepared. Animals are better prepared. The beaver better prepares. And I will point out, if you're out in your car, make sure you've got stuff, especially when it's snowy. In fact, I've got a huge bag of no-name kitty litter. I've got 6 of them in my trunk. It gives you extra weight and extra traction, and I must say it gets you out of stuck snowbanks. It's actually hard to find the cheap stuff because it doesn't work so well for cat pee, but it sure helps get you out of the snow.
Well, if I'm just booting around town in Ottawa, I don't worry about having too much. But if we're going on a long road trip where we're out in the middle of nowhere, we do have a bag that travels with us. It even has those little thermal blankets, the kind you see runners wear. The people that exercise, unlike me, they wear after a run to keep warm. They're this thick. It keeps them warm. It allows them to go and, you know, if you get stuck, you can keep warm just slightly.
That's right. They cost $2. You can buy them at Home Hardware or Canadian Tire, and they will keep you from freezing to death for a toonie. These aren't crazy things. These are very basic things that we should always have for emergency preparedness, because you've got to be responsible for yourself and for your children. And again, this is a generational thing. Prior to the 1970s, it was unheard of for people to not have a month worth of jarred food or canned food and water stored in their house.
Well, Chris, you are my resident prepper, so you send me some notes. We'll get them up on the blog and let people know what to do. Thanks so much for chatting with us today.
Thank you.